Before the noise of the day begins, before your phone lights up, the deadlines press in, and the world expects you to be on pause. Breathe. Be honest. What are you holding so tightly that it's quietly draining your strength? Is it the pressure to be perfect, to have all the answers, to stay strong for everyone else? Maybe it's the fear that if you let go, everything will fall apart. Maybe it's that silent voice that tells you, you don't have permission to fall apart. But what if the strongest thing you could do today isn't to hold it all together, but to release it? What if surrender isn't the end, but the beginning? The beginning of peace, of clarity, of truly being carried. This morning, before anything else defines you, let God meet you in letting go. He's not asking you to be more. He's inviting you to rest in the truth that He already is. You don't have to be visibly falling apart to be deeply tired. Some of the most overwhelming exhaustion never shows up in your eyes, your voice, or your posture. It hides in the silence of your inner world. The world may look at you and see someone functional, responsible, even strong. But inside, you know that something is unraveling. Not dramatically, but slowly, through the invisible pressure you carry alone. There's a kind of fatigue that sleep doesn't fix. It's the exhaustion that comes from pretending to be okay for too long. It's the burden of feeling like you have to keep everyone else steady, even when you're barely holding yourself together. It's the pressure to keep performing, keep achieving, keep proving that you're not falling behind. And perhaps most of all, it's the fear that if you don't do it all, you'll disappoint not just others, but God Himself. That kind of weight isn't always loud. It doesn't always come from crisis or trauma. Often, it's the accumulation of small expectations you've placed on yourself over time. The mental checklist that runs like a loop in your head from the moment you wake up. The way you clench your jaw during meetings. The subtle panic when plans shift and you feel everything slipping out of your hands. These are not the burdens that make headlines, but they are the ones that slowly wear down the soul. But here's the truth, Jesus never asked you to carry all of this. In Matthew 11 verse 28, He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." This is not a poetic suggestion, it's a divine invitation. He sees the weight no one else sees. He understands the invisible expectations you carry and gently reminds you that your soul was never meant to hold so much. Letting go, then, isn't always about the big, dramatic release. It's not just about surrendering heartbreaks or traumas or public failures. Sometimes, letting go is simply allowing yourself to be human again. It's choosing not to chase perfection today. It's telling yourself that your worth is not found in your productivity, but in the presence of God who calls you beloved. It's releasing the fear that you're letting everyone down and accepting the truth that you don't have to hold the world together, because God already is. And what if you stopped for a moment, right now, and asked yourself, what am I still carrying that I was never meant to hold? Is it the pressure to be perfect? The fear of disappointing others? The unspoken belief that rest is earned, not gifted? What if rest isn't the reward at the end of a long journey, but the gift that sustains you along the way? What if letting go isn't a loss, but a pathway to breathe again? Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do isn't to try harder, it's to unclench your fists. It's to admit you're tired. And it's to say, God, I'm not okay. But I'm here. And I want to trust you with this, too. When you surrender what's invisible, you begin to experience what's sacred. The invisible pressure turns into tangible peace. The mental checklist is silenced by a deeper stillness. Your sense of identity shifts from performance to presence. And in the quiet, God meets you, not with more expectations, but with the gentle whisper, you are not alone. And you never were. So today, maybe the bravest thing you can do isn't to get it all done. Maybe it's to come empty-handed. To let go of what's been draining you in silence. And to discover that rest isn't weakness, it's worship. It's faith in motion. And it's the doorway to healing you didn't even know you needed. Take this moment, not to plan or strive, but to breathe and release. Imagine yourself placing those invisible weights, one by one, into God's hands. Watch how He doesn't reject them. He receives them. He receives you. Completely. Willingly. Tenderly. Because you were never meant to carry it all alone. And now, you don't have to. Surrender sounds beautiful when it's preached from a mountaintop moment, a powerful worship night, a breakthrough retreat, or a line in a song that makes you weep. We often imagine it as a single, life-altering decision. One moment where we lay everything down at the feet of Jesus and walk away forever changed. And sometimes, it happens that way. But most of the time, it doesn't. Most of the time, surrender is far more ordinary. It happens in parking lots and kitchen sinks. In quiet commutes and long checkout lines. It looks like waking up with anxiety clinging to your chest and whispering, "God, I trust you with this day, even when I feel afraid." It looks like choosing not to replay the same conversation in your head for the 10th time, and instead choosing peace. It's forgiving someone who hasn't said sorry yet. It's praying the same prayer for a child, a diagnosis, a future you still can't see, again and again, even when the answer hasn't come. Jesus said in Luke 9 verse 23, "If anyone wants to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me." Daily. Not just once. Not just when the moment feels holy. But when it feels boring. When it feels exhausting. When it feels like nothing is changing. That's where surrender becomes not a performance, but a posture. Not an event, but a rhythm. And truthfully, that kind of surrender can be frustrating because it doesn't always feel spiritual. It feels repetitive. Small. Quiet. It can feel like you're doing something wrong because you keep having to surrender the same thing over and over. But you're not failing. You're forming. Every time you release control again, you're strengthening the muscle of trust. Every time you choose faith over frustration, you're saying to God, "I still believe you're worth following, even when it's hard." Some days, surrender might feel like an anthem. Other days, it feels like a whisper you can barely get out. Both are holy. Both are heard. The power of surrender is not in its volume, but in its consistency. It's not about how dramatic the letting go is, it's about the heart behind it. God sees the yes behind your sigh. He sees the trust buried in your tiredness. So maybe today's surrender doesn't need to be loud. Maybe it just needs to be honest. Maybe it's as simple as saying, "God, I'm tired of carrying this again. But I give it to you again." Maybe it's pulling out a journal and writing 3 things you will not carry today. Anxiety about the future. Shame from the past. The need to be in control of something that's not yours. And then, speak it out, "God, I let this go. I release it into your hands." This simple practice, done daily, can become a lifeline. A reset button. A gentle return to the truth that you are not meant to carry it all. You are not weak for needing to surrender again. You are wise for choosing the way of grace over the illusion of control. And sometimes, the most courageous faith is not in the big leaps, but in the daily steps, the quiet, stubborn decisions to keep showing up in trust. You don't have to feel spiritual for it to count. You don't have to feel strong for God to move. You just have to show up with what you have, as you are, and offer it to Him. That is worship. That is surrender. That is following Jesus. So don't wait for the mountaintop moment. Bring your surrender to the Monday morning mess. To the coffee spills and carpool chaos. To the recurring worries and repeated prayers. That's where transformation happens. That's where your soul learns to breathe again, not in the absence of pressure, but in the presence of peace. Surrender is not once and done. It's daily. It's sacred. And even when it feels small, it is building something eternal inside of you. Don't despise the repetition. God doesn't. He meets you there, every single time. Control feels safe. It gives us something to hold on to when everything else feels uncertain. We cling to plans, schedules, and outcomes because they give us the illusion of security. We convince ourselves that if we just work hard enough, think long enough, and prepare for every possible scenario, we'll avoid pain, disappointment, or loss. But the truth is, the more we grasp for control, the more peace slips through our fingers. There's a kind of fear that doesn't shout, it whispers. It tells us we can't afford to let go. That if we loosen our grip, everything will unravel. So, we overanalyze every decision, obsess over every detail, and try to pre-write the ending to a story only God can finish. We say we trust Him, but deep down, we're still editing His script. We try to negotiate with grace, to fit God's will inside our comfort zones. But Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." These verses aren't just a suggestion, they are a lifeline. Because our understanding is limited, but God's vision is eternal. Our grip is fragile, but His hands are steady. Letting go of control isn't easy. It goes against everything we've been taught in a world that idolizes independence and certainty. But faith was never meant to be built on formulas. Faith is about releasing the outcome, even the good one you've prayed for, and trusting that God knows what you can't yet see. We often fear that surrender means settling for less. That if we let go of what we want, God might not come through. But what if surrender is actually the doorway to more, not less? More peace. More presence, more clarity. Not because the situation is fixed, but because your heart is finally free from having to fix it. Imagine holding a balloon in your hands. Each fear, each unanswered prayer, each plan you've gripped too tightly, write them mentally on the surface of that balloon. Now, imagine yourself slowly opening your fingers, letting the string slip from your grasp. Watch it rise. Higher and higher, into the sky of God's sovereignty. That's what surrender looks like. It's not passivity, it's powerful. It's the active choice to trust the one who already sees the view from above. Surrender doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what isn't yours. You're still called to show up, to love deeply, to walk in wisdom. But you're not called to play God. You're not meant to orchestrate every outcome or ensure every detail works out perfectly. That's not trust, that's control dressed in religious language. The fear of losing control is real. But the cost of clinging too tightly is even greater. It costs you peace. It costs you presence. It makes you miss the beauty of today because you're obsessed with predicting tomorrow. And most painfully, it creates distance between you and the God who's simply asking for your heart. So today, ask yourself gently, what am I still trying to control? Is it a relationship? A diagnosis? A financial future? A version of how you thought life would turn out by now? And what would it look like to release that, fully, honestly, into God's hands? Start small. Whisper a prayer. Name what you're holding. And then let it go, not just once, but every time fear creeps back in. Let go again. And again. Until your grip softens and your heart learns that surrender isn't weakness, it's wisdom. The safest place for your future is not in your carefully constructed plans. It's in the hands of a faithful God who has never let you go. You don't have to map out every step. You just have to take the next one, trusting that He's already ahead of you. Letting go may feel like falling at first, but in time, you'll realize you were never falling, you were being held. Control may offer momentary certainty, but surrender offers lasting peace. And that's what your soul is truly craving. Let go, not because you've lost the fight, but because you're finally choosing freedom over fear. Let go, not into the unknown, but into the hands of the one who has always known what's best for you. And in that release, may you find the kind of peace that doesn't depend on outcomes, but on the unwavering goodness of God. There's a quiet kind of guilt that lingers in the hearts of believers, especially the ones who deeply love God but still struggle to let go. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It whispers in the middle of worship. It echoes during prayer. It says, you should be better at this by now. Maybe you've prayed, God, I surrender, but a day later, you're anxious again. Maybe you've said you trust Him, but deep inside, you're still holding the reins. And maybe you've started to believe that this tension means you're failing, that you're disappointing God with your hesitation, your wrestling, your almost surrendered heart. But hear this, God does not shame your struggle. He steps into it. Romans 8 verse 26 says, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. Not avoids us. Not wait until we're stronger. But helps us. Join us. Fights for us. Even when our prayers sound more like sighs than declarations. Even when the surrender we offer is shaky, halting, or incomplete. The beauty of grace is that it doesn't demand perfection, it welcomes honesty. It doesn't wait for you to get it all together. It meets you in your mess. God doesn't stand off in the distance waiting for your full obedience before He engages. He draws near in your uncertainty. He honors your desire, even when it's wrapped in fear. He cherishes your longing, even when it's tangled with doubt. The struggle doesn't disqualify you from His love, it becomes the very place where His love reaches you most deeply. You can bring your half-surrendered heart to God. You can say, Lord, I want to let go, but I'm scared, and He won't flinch. He won't pull away. He will kneel beside you in that space and hold the pieces with you. That's what the Spirit does. He groans with us. He carries what we can't articulate. He interprets the tears we've stopped trying to explain. If you've been carrying shame because you haven't surrendered fully, lay it down. That's not a burden God gave you. That's not His voice speaking condemnation over your process. He is not waiting for a perfectly opened hand before He begins His work. He begins right in the hesitation. He works with what you bring, even if it's small, hesitant, or broken. So let this be your prayer today. God, even if I can't let go all at once, I invite you into the process. Even if I'm still scared, I choose to trust you step by step. Meet me in the middle of my surrender, not the end of it. There is room for process in the kingdom of God. There is space to breathe, space to struggle, and space to grow slowly. Faith isn't always a leap. Sometimes, it's a series of trembling steps, and God counts every one of them. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are not weak because this is hard. You are brave because you're still here, still trying, still reaching, still whispering yes, even when it hurts. Let this truth wash over your soul. God is not disappointed in your weakness. He delights in your willingness. And that's enough. He will carry you where you can't carry yourself. He will lead you even through your questions. And when your voice falters, His Spirit speaks for you. So take the pressure off. Let go of the timeline you gave yourself. Let go of the guilt for still feeling fragile. And lean into the truth that surrender is not a destination. It's a relationship. A rhythm. A holy unfolding. And you, exactly as you are deeply loved in the process. God. Before my feet touch the floor, before the weight of the world reaches for me, I come to you. Not with perfect words or polished strength, but with trembling honesty. I bring you my cluttered thoughts, my racing mind, the pressure that wraps itself around my chest before the day even begins. I bring you the fear I pretend I don't feel, the exhaustion I mask behind to-do lists, and the ache of carrying what was never mine to hold. Today, I let go. I let go of the story that says I have to earn love, the inner critic that tells me I'm behind, and the unspoken belief that I must prove my worth to be accepted. I surrender the hustle, the image, the striving. I release the silent need to fix what only you can heal, to control what only you can orchestrate. I lay down the timelines I've drawn in frustration, the expectations I've wrapped in urgency, and the dreams I've clung to tighter than I've clung to you. Not because those dreams are wrong, but because I've tried to build them on my own strength. I open my hands, not out of resignation, but because I choose trust. I choose you. Shape this day, not by how much I accomplish, but by how closely I walk with you. Let my breath slow. Let my heart soften. Let my mind quiet long enough to hear your voice above the noise. When fear comes knocking, whisper back with your truth. When anxiety surges, remind me of your peace that surpasses understanding. When I'm tempted to take control again, gently guide me back to surrender. You are not asking me to carry it all. You are inviting me to walk with you. So I release what I cannot control, the people I love but cannot change, the outcomes I long for but cannot guarantee, the battles I've fought too long on my own. I give them to you. And I trust that you, in your wisdom and goodness, will do far more than I ever could. Where I've been trying to be strong, help me be still. Where I've been trying to perform, teach me to simply abide. Where I've been pushing forward out of fear, lead me forward in faith. Let this day be marked not by pressure, but by presence. Not by perfection, but by peace. You are the God who sees me, even when I feel unseen. You are the one who holds me steady, even when I falter. You are not impressed by my performance. You are moved by my surrender. So here I am, not put together, not fearless, not certain, but willing, and in your hands, that is enough. I trust that what you give is better than what I cling to. I believe that your way, even when it leads through the unknown, is still the best way. I rest in the truth that letting go is not failure. It's faith. And today, I will walk by that faith, one moment at a time. So take this morning. Take this breath. Take this heart that wants to trust you more than it wants to control. I let go, God. Again. And again. Because you are worthy. And because in the letting go, I find you waiting, with mercy in your hands and peace in your voice. Amen. She sat in her car in the hospital parking lot, hands clenched around the steering wheel, unmoving. Her phone buzzed on the passenger seat, another message from her sister asking if she had talked to Mom's doctor yet. She couldn't bring herself to answer. The silence inside the car was deafening, pressing against her chest like a weight she couldn't explain. Just that morning, she had prayed, "God, I let go." She had whispered the words with tears in her eyes, truly wanting to surrender everything into His hands. But now, just hours later, she was back in the swirl of fear and pressure. Her mother's diagnosis had come suddenly. There were tests, vague answers, and more tests. And now there were words like biopsy, oncologist, and possible treatment options. Words that made her stomach turn and her breath shallow. She wanted to trust. She wanted to believe that God was in control. But as the weight of responsibility crept in, the pressure to be the strong one, to make the right decisions, to hold everyone else together, her peace began to unravel. She bowed her head against the steering wheel and whispered, "God, I'm scared. I want to let go, but this hurts too much." In that moment, she wasn't strong. But she was real. And heaven listened anyway. In that quiet moment in the car, with her head resting against the steering wheel and tears tracing silent lines down her face, she experienced a different kind of surrender. Not the kind wrapped in certainty or strength, but the kind born out of raw honesty and holy exhaustion. She realized that letting go wasn't about having all the answers or suddenly feeling brave. It was about bringing her fear to God, not hiding it. It was about showing up in the tension between faith and fear, and daring to whisper, "I trust you anyway." For so long, she believed that trusting God meant not feeling overwhelmed. But now, she knew better. Trust wasn't the absence of emotion. It was the choice to return to God in the middle of it. Even in the chaos of her mother's diagnosis, even as her heart ached with unknowns, God had not left her side. He was in the room where she didn't yet have the courage to walk. He was in the decision she didn't yet know how to make. He was in her breath, steady and sure, even as her world shook. And so, as she wiped her eyes and started the car, she wasn't suddenly fearless. But she was no longer alone. Surrender had not changed the situation, but it had changed her posture. And sometimes, That's where the real miracle begins. In your own life, surrender won't always feel like victory, but if you can be honest with God, even when you're unsure, scared, or tired, that is where peace begins. Let go. Not because you're giving up, but because you're ready to live free. The heart of this story isn't just about a hospital parking lot or a difficult diagnosis. It's about the holy, life-changing moment when we stop pretending and start trusting. Life will always present us with situations beyond our control, moments that shake our strength and test our peace. But God never asked us to carry those moments alone. He invites us into surrender, not as a sign of weakness, but as a gateway to grace. What this woman discovered in the silence of her fear is something we all need to remember. Surrender isn't about giving up. It's about giving over to a God who is able, present, and loving. When we're willing to admit our need, we create space for God's strength to meet us. We shift from striving to abiding, from panic to peace. So here's the life lesson. You don't need to have it all together before you bring it to God. Come as you are. Trust in the struggle. Let your tears be prayers. And when you say, I let go, know that heaven listens, and God holds what you can't. That is where healing begins, and that is how peace takes root in real life.